where we were.
So we were talking about classical and neoclassical.
Yeah, so neoclassical. And then although some of the romantics adapted the classical forms, for example, ode and included the elements of Greek mythology in their works, they rejected the idea of imitation as too restrictive of creative imagination. So on the other side, you already know that the classical, first of all, they rebelled against the classical. Secondly, you see that romantics, they adapted some of the forms of classical. You can say that including the Greek mythology, the elements of Greek mythology that I am calling as Hellen, Hellenistic components. Okay, Hellenistic features or Hellenistic components. On the other side, we see that what they were actually against, the Romantics, in terms of not to accept classical models and the styles, they rejected the idea of imitation. Imitation. What was the idea of imitation? According to the Greeks, the idea of imitation was to copy something. Like you can say a copy in the form of that there is some object and you have to copy that object. You have to imitate that object in the same sense or in the same meaning. So they rejected the idea of imitation as too restrictive of creative imagination because this thing is too restrictive. You cannot copy something. The Romantics, they were of the belief, they were of the view that you cannot imitate or copy something as it is. Rather, this idea is too much, I would say, restrictive. This will restrain you not to create something with your fully understanding and sometimes with your I would say full independence, because this will stop you whenever you have to copy something in the form of its you can say shape or its contents. So this was the idea of the Greeks, to copy something, but like there is an object, so you have to copy that object in the same way, in the same meaning. So when at this idea at that time was actually very famous, and you know that there was some criticism that the later philosophers, the later poets also faced, specifically Aristotle, because Plato was also against it. Plato was also against this type of imitation. But on the other side, Aristotle, he talked about the concept of imitation that was actually mimesis at that time. So he talked about in detail that copying something or imitation of something is not a sin. It is not a crime. It is not, even though you can say that far from the reality also. This is only, you can say that with the delight of with the delight of static language, with the delight of static emotions. So this is only that. So there is nothing, I would say, bad in this. So this was the view of of Aristotle at that time. So we can say now that this has taken a new shape in the in the world of Romanticism, because now this form of imitation was not restrictive. There was no boundary, there was no boundage on this. People can think flawlessly and independently about anything or in any aspect or in any meaning, I would say. So that was, I would, the beauty of Romanticism, because they did not entirely accept the models and the literary styles of the Greece. So that is the reason that they are calling it as an entirely or a pure romantic age. So okay, then we will be now talking about that what are their literary styles and how they have managed to talk about all these things. First of all, he has talked about an ode. You know that ode is an old genre. This is not belonging to the current age. This is an old genre. It means that even though this word has also been taken from the previous word, from the Greek word, because ode is likely to be ballad, likely to be ballad, because ballad is also when there is something is written in a musical form, and on that musical form, people they dance. Especially ode is also that the a sub genre, sorry, sub technique or sub uh, literary device of that ballad. What it is all about. Ode is an elaborately structured poem praising or glorifying an event or individual, describing nature intellectually as well as emotionally. So now you can say that ode is all about it is a structured poem praising or glorifying an event or individual, describing, because you know that ode have they have been written about the nature, so describing nature intellectually or creatively as well as emotionally. You know that nature can for the first time has been seen emotionally, as someone was asking about that, okay, what is logic? So the people who have seen the nature logically in the previous age, in the Greek times, you know that all the philosophers, they were looking at the nature with a logic, with a reason. And what was that? That they were actually coining the meanings out of it, that how the planets work, how the galaxy works, how the stars work, and what is the role of sun, what is the role of moon. So they were actually discussing the functions about these planets and all these stars logically, on the basis of logic. And you know that philosophy is all about truth and truth is all about logic. So we can say that these are the things, because all the Greek philosophers, they are the mathematicians also, and on the other side philosophers. So philosophy is all about truth, and truth is all about the logic. You know that there is no difference between that as well, because philosophy and logic, mathematics, so these are the things in which you judge or you evaluate something on the basis of experiment, definitely. So this was actually the logic that they had the view of. On the other side, we see that nature for the first time has been seen as emotionally. And what does this mean? This means that nature has been given the qualities or the characteristics of the human emotion for the first time. Like you can see the Ode to the Nightingale by John Keats. Ode to the Nightingale by John Keats talks about a story of John Keats himself, in which he is actually fed up with the worries, with the tensions, with the problems of the world, and now he wants some relaxation from the world, from the problems of, from the atrocities of the world. And what he feels is so that he just wants to go into the world of nightingale. That is a bird. He wants to go into the world of nightingale, and he feels that into the world of nightingale I'll be feeling much relaxed, much satisfied, because that world is the world of imagination. And ultimately that is also the, you can say, the nature, which is also nature, like the birds, animals, the trees, plants, so everything, they are actually the components of nature. And now you see that how he has taken a new way to get rid of the worries of the world by going into the world of nightingale. So that is his imagination, and that is that he is talking about nature as a human being. because he feels so that I can share my problem with the nature, and nature in return can definitely console me, and it happens so. That is the reason that most of the people, we go to the northern areas and we go to the other areas just to feel ourselves that we are in the lap of the nature and we are totally detached from the worries and the other things of the world. That is the reason. So, for the first time, it has been seen that nature plays its role not as a nature, but as a humankind, as a human being. So that is the reason that nature has also been called as a living phenomena, an emotional living phenomena that talks with the human being and that consoles the human beings, that gives the comfort to the human beings. That is actually the real cause of this. There are two distinctive features of the ode. And what are they? It usually uses heightened imperfect language, so the language is passionate. It is full of sentiments and emotions. Secondly, addresses some object. So there are some objects that it addresses, like it can be any kind of pot, like you already see that John Keats talked about an urn. Like if you talk about, even though they have given this as well, the ode may speak to objects like urn or creatures like skylark or nightingale, and presences of power, beauty, autumn, the west wind. So like it can be any object. It can be the west wind. This is also an autumn. It is also an object. The beauty. It is an object. Autumn. This is also an object. So it can be about anything. That ode can be about anything. The speaker first invokes the object and then creates a relationship with it, either through praise or prayer. It means nature, as a living phenomena, listens the groans, the pains, the worries of the human being. And this is for the first time that they have given these qualities, these qualities of human beings, the emotional qualities of human being to nature. And it works. Unlikely the alone looked outwards to society for general truths to communicate to common men. Romantic writers looked inwards to their soul and imagination to find private truths for special readers. This is the main difference. Like you see that there are many, even though philosophies, there are many philosophies. They're wrong after sometimes after some years. Whenever there comes a new philosophy, egg or monkey, we all are, like you can say, the modified shapes or modified, like they have their own view. Much value now, and there are many who also accept it